The Sunday Telegraph's editor, Alistair Heath, has written in a column, 13 years of Tory failure have shifted Britain radically to the left. He added the Tories, under 5 prime ministers since 2010, have failed to make Britain more conservative. On almost every metric, we've become more socialist, woke and collectivist. Just last week, we saw the formation of the New Conservatives, the latest backbench insurgent group, who are demanding the government starts to take seriously its pledge to drastically cut immigration. That's before you get to lowering taxes and the so-called culture wars. And last month, fed-up figures on the right fought for the soul of the party as they gathered for 2 major conferences. But are they fighting a losing battle? Indeed, are the Tories now just a left-wing party? Let me know your thoughts, Dan at gbnews.com, or tweet us at gbnews. And it's also subject to our text poll today. We'll get you the results of that very shortly. But to debate this, I'm delighted to welcome 2 former legends of the Conservative movement. The leader of UKIP and ex-Tory MP Neil Hamilton, and former Conservative government minister and best-selling author Edwina Currie. Neil Hamilton, are the Tories now a left-wing party?
Yes, of course they are. And what can we point to in the last 13 years of Conservative government, which is recognisably Conservative? Immigration is completely out of control. Forget about the small boats coming across the channel. Net migration, which was legal last year, was over 600,000. And we've added 4 million to our population through immigration alone under this Conservative government. They've doubled the national debt. We've got the highest tax burden since the Attlee government immediately after the war. Inflation is at a 40-year high. This year alone, they've raised business taxes by a third. Corporation tax went up from 18% to 25%. Eco-lunacy is running rampant through the country. Energy prices are at least a quarter more than they need to be because of green taxes, which are supposed to save the planet, but all they do is actually cost the earth. I could go on and on and on. What have the Conservative Party done to take on the woke onslaught upon our basic freedoms in this country? Almost nothing. They've done nothing to deliver on Brexit, the huge corpus of legislation which we opposed as ministers, and I was a member, as Edwina was, of the Council of Ministers in Brussels for several years. We opposed lots of details in European Union measures. Nothing has been done to row back on those measures that were imposed upon us against our will. So many measures, this Conservatives utterly failed to live up to its name as a Conservative party.
Edwina Currie, Chinese-style lockdowns, the highest taxes since the Second World War, a woke takeover of our institutions, and the maniacal pursuit of net zero. Doesn't sound very Conservative to me.
Well, I don't know about that because I remember paying over 40% as a basic rate of tax when Margaret Thatcher got elected. And was able to start reducing it. So if you're talking about higher rates of tax and taxable income coming in, it's partly because we have a much, much bigger economy and we need to do something to reduce that national debt, or at least get it under control. You can't have it both ways. Now, there are lots of things that I want to change, and one of them is to change the mindset of the nation at large, which has got a bit too used to the government doing everything. You've heard me say this before. Governments can't do everything. In fact, governments don't do most things at all well. But this government has been learning, and it's been learning quite fast. So, for example, the price cap that we've seen on energy has just dropped by about a third. That's good. I think we'll get to a stage when we don't need that at all. It has refused to start helping mortgage holders, basing the idea, I think quite rightly, on the notion that actually if we're going to get inflation down, we have to, all of us, try and change our behaviour and stop buying high-priced things and be more canny with our money. It has refused to hand anything over to the strikers, and that's been very good indeed, because the strikes that have already been settled have been settled at about a half to 2/3 of inflation, which in itself will come down. And I don't know if Neil has noticed, but as a result, the international view of our economy has steadily got more optimistic. We are seeing a certain amount of growth. The pound has risen since September last year from $1 and I think it was $1.03 or something like that, up to about $1.27. So our money is buying an awful lot more. There's a lot more to do and a lot more to go ahead. People during COVID got used to turning to the government for all advice, all instruction, and lost their sense of responsibility. That, I think, has to come back, and the quicker the government encourages that, the better.
Briefly, Edwina, if you can, the issue is these insurgent parties. So you've got Reform UK, you've got UKIP, increasingly popular, Richard Tice, Neil Hamilton, a threat to the Tories at the next election. And why are they there? Because this Conservative government is not representing viewers and listeners to this programme who consider themselves proper, traditional Conservatives. Those people feel politically homeless, and it's the fault of the last several Tory leaders.
Well, with all due respect to them, if they want a Labour government, perhaps they are going the right way towards it. And I personally do not want a Labour government. I know that the way our political system works, which we've had for many centuries, is to squeeze out the small parties. They are wasting their time. Perhaps they're just natural contrarians. I mean, the fact there's so many little fringe parties tells you they're not very good at agreeing with anybody, are they? They're all basically members of a party of one. That's certainly been true since Neil Hamilton left the Tory party a very, very long time ago. No, look, we have to work together. The big parties, the Conservative Party is a very broad umbrella.
OK.
And people are very, very welcome. And we'd like to see them back. We want to see them working to make sure we don't get the socialists in power.
Neil Hamilton, we've got a slight technical issue, which is that your face is out of focus. The lampshade behind you is in focus, but it's what you say that really matters anyway. And thank you for joining us. I think you're abroad at the moment. It's lovely to have you on the programme, and Edwina, of course.
Where I am today by my looks.
Well, there you go. That's exactly right. Now, listen, Neil, briefly again, if you can. The clock's against us. But what do you make of Edwina's rather sniffy comments about smaller parties like UKIP and Reform UK?
Well, you know, there's no point in arguing that. I mean, what we're talking about here is whether the Conservative Party is truly a Conservative Party and worth voting for. I mean, what is going to be the difference between the Starmer government and the Conservative government we've currently got? As I said, the indictment that I put out at the start of this segment today was, you know, we've got immigration completely out of control. We've got taxes at a 60-year high, inflation a 40-year high. Business taxes have gone up by a third this year alone. And these are not Conservative policies. We've got green lunacy running rampant. You know, we've effectively destroyed our energy independence because of high taxes, windfall taxes on oil companies in developments in the North Sea, and reliance upon intermittent sources like wind and solar, whilst we've closed down our coal industry. Energy prices have gone through the roof. So all our high energy intensive industries have been sent overseas. And we're importing these products like steel, glass, aluminium and so on from China, India and elsewhere. You know, this is the result of 13 years of a so-called Conservative government. If you keep on voting for these policies, these are the policies you're going to get. So if you can't get them from a Conservative government, don't vote for it. OK, listen, you're a gentleman, Neil. I'm a gentleman. Edwina, you get the last word.
He's an old Neanderthal, isn't he? He's not going to win any votes, and he knows it.
Yeah.
What an outrageous thing to say. Edwina, great to have you on the programme. We'll catch up soon. Former Conservative Government Minister, best-selling author Edwina Currie, and the leader of UKIP and his lampshade, live from Menorca. Neil, I do hope that Christine hasn't finished all the sangria. Thanks for joining us from your holiday villa. Brilliant stuff. Oh, to be a fly on the wall in that hotel.